What's up, guys? Welcome to your second Aluminum Audible podcast episode of the week. This is your host, Jared Kalmus. I'm joined by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. What's going on, Adrian?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like the way that sounds. It's absolutely delicious. Yes. Second regular episode podcast of the week. And we are pumped up to be shifting gears here in the bye week to finally be talking about some road runner hoops. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Basketball season is here.
Yeah, it feels good. And it's nice that the bye week actually, for football, the bye week actually fell like on a perfect slot to preview the basketball season. You know, I guess ideally it would have been a week closer to basketball, would probably be better because we'd probably have a little bit more clarity around who the starters are going to be and, you know, who's the primary guys on the bench and stuff like that. But considering the other possibilities, I will definitely take it. It's great that we're going to be able to dedicate a full episode to basketball and not have to just squeeze it in between football coverage. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's typically the case whenever we try to get to our starter basketball content. So this is nice. Yeah. So definitely a changing of guard occurring with basketball. And let's just jump right into it, right? I mean, look, you graduate the most prolific, highest scoring backcourt duo in the nation for the last 2 years in Keaton Wallace and Jhivvan Jackson. These guys accounted for 45% of our shot attempts, 58% of our three-pointers, massive, tremendous load of just our point share, game in, game out. You're not going to have that anymore. There's double-edged sword about that. Yes, you lose your prolific scores, but man, as good as those two were, UTSA lived and also died on the success of Keaton Wallace and Jhivvan Jackson. When those two guys were having a cold game, there was no hope for UTSA. Now we move into a new era. It's going to, I think, involve a lot more hands on deck, so to speak, Jared. And we're going to see a lot more distribution. We're going to see a lot more guys taking shots, a lot more distribution across the chart. And I think it's a very, very exciting time, but there's going to be some adjustments that need to be made as we come off of the graduation of those two. And big shout out to Keaton Wallace. I think he was picked up in the G League draft just a couple of days ago with Memphis. So,
I guess he would be the first Roadrunner to be drafted into the G League, because I think before it was just kind of a free agent deal up until like maybe last year. I think they instituted the draft for the G League. So that's a cool little tidbit. For the 2026 Aluminum Audible Trivia Night, be ready for that one. Write it down now. Put it in your OneNote app. Put it in your Evernote.
That's right. And on that note, hopefully Keaton Wallace's little bro ends up at UTSA. Was it next year or is it 2 years for? I
think that he's in the class of 2022.
2022, sure. Yeah.
So he would sign in December, most likely.
Still in his top four, along with the likes of Tennessee, Kentucky, and UT.
Hey, he hasn't committed anywhere. He hasn't said no.
He has not said no, and I think he's got the chip on the shoulder mentality, because he didn't actually get like a ranked player. He didn't get a rank awarded to him, even though he's like a top one. Even though he was dominating the NBPA top 100 camp. So there's a little snub action there. I like that mentality kind of identifies with us a little bit. I don't know. I mean, we still got some chance.
So you're saying he's like an underdog 4-star? Is that what I'm hearing?
So I think he feels that he's been slighted, even though the rest of the world might recognize how close.
Oh, man. I think he said, I'll show you guys. I'll go to UTSA.
And just ball out. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's
great.
about.
I love it. Hey, look, I've always been of the opinion that even if he goes to UT, Kentucky, whatever, it's so cool that he chose to put UTSA in his top 5, and he took an official visit. He only gets 5 official visits. The fact that he chose to take one to the Convocation Center is incredible. And, no matter like what his true intention is and like how, if this is a tough call for him to decide if he wants to go to UTSA or not, I don't know. But I mean, I think it's a huge endorsement for Steve Henson and his staff. And of course, the way that Keaton was treated, and obviously, he got to the next level, and, he's going to be making some decent money in the G League with a chance to, get a call up at some point in the season and go hit a couple threes, right? So that's awesome. I mean, it's a huge recruiting plug, and I think it's a great a great gesture. Is Carson his name? Is that right?
Kaysen
said, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it says a lot. Obviously millions, well, maybe not millions, hundreds of thousands of people saw that, and there were probably some 3-stars that were like, oh, like what do they got going on at UTSA? Like that's kind of crazy.
So, right, awesome. Right. Just that eyebrow raise, right? I mean, that goes a long way. Absolutely. And I don't think we've heard any news on Jhivvan Jackson. He didn't get drafted. I don't know if he's going to end up trying to work something out maybe overseas. I think he'd be really successful going that route, especially with the type of game he plays. But we'll see. We're still out on Jhivvan. So now on to the current construction of the UTSA Roadrunners. A couple new names on the list, huh, Jared?
Yeah, definitely. We're still trying to figure out what exactly this team is going to look like. I think the starters are still a little bit unclear. They had a close scrimmage with Texas Southern recently, really, really good team out of the SWAC that was in the tournament last year. And they might have won a game in the tournament last year. I can't recall, but I mean, they're a really good program. So, of course, they don't release the scores from that. And it's a scrimmage, so it doesn't really matter. But I didn't really get the vibe that they dominated Texas Southern. It was the interviews that came out afterwards are very much like we competed well. We learned a lot about ourselves, yada, yada, yada. Right? Not that it was negative. Like I didn't get the sense that anyone was discouraged. But I think it just goes to show like this is very much a team that's in a developmental mode right now, which makes a lot of sense and is very expected for a team that just lost 2 of the best players in school history.
Yeah, tremendous.
So
go ahead.
When we start getting into the newcomers, I think the first name that you have to start with is Darius McNeil. He's definitely the marquee guy on this team. I get the vibe that he might be the leader of the squad. Just got the veteran presence. He came in as a grad transfer from SMU, but he started at Cal. I think he was like a 4-star or high 3-star.
Well, actually, Jared, Darius McNeil started at Westfield High School.
Oh, excuse me.
Texas. What up? Westfield Mustangs, my guy, my alma mater. Oh my gosh. Westfield
I didn't mean to disrespect your alma mater like that. I'm so sorry.
Dude. And we churn out very, very, very good basketball talent here in Spring, Texas. So yes, man. And he was really, really good. He was a 4-star recruit out of Westfield High School, number 21 player in the state of Texas. And, he went to Cal and then over to SMU. Yes, you are correct. And he actually led the AAC in 3-point shooting percentage at SMU last year, 45%.
Yeah, I mean he's a great shooter. He actually set the freshman record for Cal for number of 3-pointers made in a season. Yeah, with 67, right? But I think more than his 3-point shooting, I think what he brings to this team more than anything else is just ability to play on-ball defense as the point guard. That's been something that UTSA has really been lacking, right? For all of Jhivvan's strengths and the way he was able to get to the basket, to hit the step back 3 and all that, he was never a plus defender. In fact, I mean, you could say he was a pretty big liability on the defensive end. There were a lot of games that I attended and then I watched where it was just like, you're cheering your heart out for Jhivvan, and then 30 seconds later, he just let someone blow past him with like hardly any effort at all. And I think Darius McNeil is going to be a big change. Obviously, the physicality part of it is a huge difference. Jhivvan was, 6 foot on a generous day, probably about $150, not much muscle in his body.
Yeah, so
Darius, cool, he looks like he could start a wide receiver for UTSA. He's a shredded dude. I haven't watched him play yet, but I thought it was interesting that in all the interviews that I've watched, so many players and coaches have gone out of their way to talk about how good of a defensive stance Darius McNeil has.
Steve Henson said his natural way of standing is a defensive stance. He's so naturally in a defensive stance at all times, just ready to go, dude.
I'm not a huge basketball guy. I watch the NBA and all that, and obviously I follow UTSA basketball really closely, but I've never heard anyone like the first compliment they give about a player is that they have a great defensive stance. Like, I don't know. Like you hear a lot of like he's got a solid great form with a shot, whatever. But
solid foundation. You've always got to be ready for war. And I don't know what part of the neighborhood Darius is from, but if he's from the Ellis side, there's a good chance he had to be on his toes.
Oh, we're getting that deep Spring, Texas,
ready to go all the time. Yes, sir. Oh man, yeah. I'll have to holler at him and find out. And it's funny because, and I hate to skip ahead here, but Cedric Alley is also from the same area, Klein Forest, and the Klein Forest and Westfield are, you know, just a few miles apart, and longtime budding basketball, football somewhat, but basketball especially, competition rivalry there. And it was funny listening to Darius talk, and they were like, how's the adjustment, getting into everybody and getting to know everybody? And he's like, man, I mean, I've known half these guys from playing in Houston, you know. Yeah. And he mentioned Cedric, like, so there's a little bit of familiarity there, right? We've got to learn how to play together, but the guys know each other's game too a little bit. And I'm pretty sure Cedric and Darius had high school contests against one another because they're both seniors, so they would have been at Westfield.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did the math real quick, and 33% of the teams from the Houston area. That's good. You know,
that's fantastic. That means we're recruiting really, really well, because Houston is a basketball powerhouse, especially in the state of Texas. Yeah. I mean, you know, I
know we're jumping around a lot, but I think it's really important that we call out the improvement in recruiting at UTSA. I think 2 of the last 3 recruiting classes for UTSA have been, at the time, the top ranked recruiting class in school history.
Well, you know what? Maybe we should take a whole step back here, because this is Steve Henson kind of coming into a more latter campaign here. He's been with us since 2016. He's sticking around, doesn't really show any signs of going anywhere. So he really is
on a second contract,
building something for the long term, right? And it was really cool listening to Steve, seeing Steve. I think like his whole goatee is gray now, being in UTS. I don't think it was when he got here. I think he still had a brown goatee. And so he was talking a lot, and he said a few really, really good things. But I'm glad you bring out the recruiting class, because he has improved the recruiting, and now he's really, really playing with just all of Henson's guys, right? And I guess maybe it's been like that for a year or two now. He also does something that was really interesting, because I see him taking a little bit of what Traylor is doing. So now they're having UTSA basketball players vote on who is going to don the black Roadrunners jersey. You heard me talk about Cedric Alley. Well, he was the very first to be voted the black Roadrunners jersey. And this is to emphasize leadership. I don't know if it's particularly for defense only, or if it's leadership on both sides of the ball.
I got the impression it was a defensive honor.
That's what I read. How I read it too. Yeah, to emphasize leadership on defense. So,
Adrian, let me correct you. That's not a Jeff Traylor thing. That's a Nebraska Cornhuskers thing.
That's right. That's right. You're right. You're right. That's right.
Yeah, because Steve is like an old school, like Big 12, Big 8,
Big 12 guy. Yeah. Well, but the players voting, right, coming into the locker room. Now that's something we're doing after Traylor kind of introduced that. So I think there's some tie in there.
Yeah,
and the other part of it, the polar part of it, was some people were asking Steve Henson, like, so, you know, a lot of these guys feel like media's overlooking them because Jhivvan and Keaton left. They're not going to be capable of scoring a whole lot. And Steve said, you know, we really don't do bulletin board material too much, probably less than a lot of other teams, but I'm sure some guys are thinking about it. So I found that super interesting too, because Traylor's a big bulletin board guy, right? Freaking Louisiana Tech's homecoming games. He loves it. He loves it. But yeah, Henson ran it a little bit different. So I thought it was cool kind of starting to kind of pluck and see what they were doing similarly and different. But I love the black jersey. I think a couple of other guys besides Alley have earned it now too. Henson mentioned it in his interview, but I don't want to get the names wrong and start butchering them. But I think they may have handed out a couple of more black jerseys.
Yeah, I don't have the full list either. Another thing that they're doing as well is they have, I think, what's called the Bird Brawl now. So essentially, it's similar to like the Oklahoma drill, or I forget what UTSA football calls it, but it's just two guys. Yeah, the bird cage. Just two guys going mano a mano. But the basketball version of it is you're down on the lower block, you know, in the lane, and they throw the ball up and you're fighting for the rebound, right? So you're like trying to box each other out and being extremely physical. So now they have like a WWE style, like champion belt, that whoever wins, like, I guess it's like a tournament style to compete in that. They get to take home that belt and wear that belt, you know? So it's really cool. I think it's a cool way to, you know, bring physicality into practice, build a little bit of competition within the team, and kind of figure out the guys that are really going to scrap for you, you know, down in the paint on the defensive side of the ball. And there's obviously been a huge, clear focus from Steve Henson that we need to step up the defense. There's no way that you're going to be able to replace the scoring that Keaton and Jhivvan brought. But if you can limit possessions and you can limit the scoring for the other team, then your margin can be about the same, right? Even if you lose 10 points per game of offensive production, if you're reducing 10 points of scoring for the other team, that equals out to what we had with Keaton and Jhivvan.
No, I like this. Let's continue to talk about schematically what needs to change, because we were a very, very volume-based team around Keaton and Jhivvan. And like I said earlier, you lived or you died based off of their success. But we were high volume. You knew who was getting the ball. You knew who was shooting the ball, and you knew who was going to be dribbling it for a majority of the possession, right? And Henson even mentioned, look, sometimes those guys had too much confidence and would take shots that essentially were ill-advised, right? And watching that team over and over, that was my biggest qualm with the Jhivvan Jackson style of play, was too much confidence and jacking up stuff, for lack of a better word.
I can pull up our text chats from games for the past 3 years, and we're both cussing back and forth about it. My gosh. Easy on the hair stuff, player. Let's not.
It was like
let's not be
my bad.
Exclusionary,
discriminatory here. Yes,
hair impeded on the Zoom here.
Yeah, my fault. But it was one of those things where it was, everyone would go ballistic when he hit the shot, right? Because a lot of times that ridiculous shot would fall and everyone was like, yeah. Me as a Houston Rockets fan, I watched the same thing from James Harden for years. And I grew to despise that ball. And like Jhivvan would do it and he would make it in the same way like James Harden would make it, and he would do it and he would make it, and like the Toyota Center would go crazy and like, whoa, everyone get out their seat and scream, and I'd be like sitting there like
well, I think too, I mean, like, let's be realistic here. 60 to 70% of UTSA Roadrunner basketball fans are also Spurs fans that were born and raised on Popovich ball.
That's right.
You don't do that stuff, man.
You don't do that. Yeah. And it's hard to get buy-in watching that style. Yeah, sure, UTSA student can get jazzed up about it when we win a couple games, come back against Old Dominion, but it's hard ball to watch from a real basketball fan's perspective, someone that truly appreciates the game and the beautiful game. It's very, very difficult to get on board with that style. Big reason why I detached from the Rockets in those Harden years. And so you actually heard a quote from Henson saying, look, we've got to slow it down. We've got to spread it out, right? It's not going to be that volume based. It's not going to be that fast. We're going to have to move the ball. We're going to have to get, and whenever he was talking about the overconfidence of sometimes the shots that Keaton and Jhivvan would take, he said, I think we're going to turn down a good shot for a better shot now. And he kind of said it like, it wasn't something we were really capable of doing, but now we've got the roster to be able to. And so now I think we have to move towards efficiency, not so much volume driven, but we've got to be efficient with our possessions. We've got to be efficient with our passing, and we've got to be efficient on defense.
Yeah, obviously I haven't been able to see any practices or scrimmages yet, but I have seen a couple of clips. And there was one possession that has stuck out to me that I saw on Twitter that the team posted or something. And I think it was Darius McNeil. He had a dribble penetration and he had a clean, wide open pull up from the free throw line. And, Jhivvan and Keaton are going to shoot that all day, every day. But Darius actually kicked it out to the wing. And I was kind of like, just take the shot. But, if that guy's going to knock down that three at a 33 to 40% clip, then that's probably a better play, right? To dish out to that open shot. It was really interesting. I think Darius is going to start at point guard. And I think he's going to be a much better distributor of the basketball, but obviously he still has a scoring ability. His time at SMU didn't go great, right? And he's admitted that. Like it was not a good fit for him and didn't work out. So, if he can get back to the guy that he was his freshman year at Cal, this is a team that can be really competitive, right? If he's in between SMU and there, this is a team that can still be, solid, right? So we're gonna have to wait and see. But I mean, I've got a good vibe from him. He seems to really be focused in, and he seems to have taken a leadership role. I would say the team in general, I've been impressed, following them on social media and stuff. Like, they're in the gym late at night on Saturday night. They are not out hitting the club.
That's right.
So that's cool to see, right?
Yeah.
Because
I've definitely seen the discipline.
There were so many games in the Wallace and Jackson era that it just seemed like the team was like not playing with their full energy and not playing like with full tenacity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Not
So I hope we
entirely
see that
committed.
pick up a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can tell when that energy is missing, right? I mean, we saw it
Mhm.
on the football field from the, into the Wilson era to now
Sure.
inside of the trailer era, that tenacity, that energy, that want to be on the floor, right? And it was hard to see that sometimes. And I
Right.
think the lack of the entire roster being involved and getting a chance to hold the ball has a lot to do with that. I mean, you can only get so excited for game day when you know you're only going to get like 3 or 4 looks at
Yeah.
a decent shot. I mean, it's
Sure.
hard, and it does create some friction in the locker room. I don't know if any of that exists, but I have to imagine some of it did. I have to imagine Jhivvan would fly down there and jack up a 3, and guys would be like, "Come on, man, again."
Yeah. I was open. You know,
If I was on
hear
that
it all the
roster,
time.
if I was on the roster, I
pick up
sure
in
as
the
hell
rack,
would feel
bro. I
like
was
that.
open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro, I was open. So you absolutely feel like that, sure.
Right.
So yeah, and I like that you mentioned Darius McNeil's professionalism, because I totally got that vibe from his interview. Yeah, he seems like a man that's about his business. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So while Jhivvan and Keaton's scoring ability and their playmaking ability is nearly impossible to replicate, the guy on the roster that's coming back this year that has closest to that play style is definitely Jordan Ivy Curry.
Yep.
I think that he made the all freshman team last year for Conference USA. Is that correct?
Yes. Jordan Ivy Curry, first team all freshman. I believe you're right on that. Hold on, let me pull it up.
So he's coming into his sophomore year.
Yep.
He's got a little bit more size than Jhivvan had.
USA all freshman honors.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit closer to Keaton in his ability at 6'2". Another guy to Houston from Lamarck. Did I say that right?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yeah, Lamarck.
I always got to check with the Houston expert. I'm new
getting
here.
Close towards the Bay. Yep. And yeah, this guy was a CSA all freshman, but this guy got a lot of minutes, man. 20 minutes per game, and he shot 40% from the field, 38% from 3. Pretty consistent with his day, right? And I think that's where you see the echoes of the similarities between Jhivvan and Keaton and Jordan, right? Definitely that style.
I think they call him Juice. This is in the game.
Juice, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was a scoring machine in high school, just like Keaton and Jhivvan was. He had over 2,000 points in his high school career, right? And to score at that volume, that's something that just comes naturally to some people, right? Like you either have that or you don't. So hopefully with a better distribution of usage, better distribution of dribbling and ball handling and all that, it allows Ivy Curry to take the next step in his game and also be able to focus a little more on the defensive end as well, like knowing that the offense can be maybe a little bit more regimented in the half court.
That's right. He's also a tremendously high motor guy. Love the energy that he plays with every single night. So yeah, I expect him to be a tremendous offensive leader on this team.
Yeah. So one of the other guys that I'm anticipating starting, obviously Ivy Curry is probably going to start a shooting guard. I can see him coming off the bench though, right? If they want to go on a bigger lineup, more defensive heavy, I could see him coming off as a spark as a 6-man.
And so Henson hasn't actually come out and put the starting lineup. Says they're still figuring things out and trying to go through it. And we even saw it last season. It took a couple of games for it to kind of settle in. But this is the Alamo Dome Audible unofficial starting 5.
Yes, of course. We probably should have clarified that early. So the guy that I think is probably going to end up being like, I don't know, like newcomer of the year, surprise
the X factor. Yeah, the dark horse X factor for this team for sure.
Maybe our biggest like recruiting find. I don't know if you would call it like an upset or what. Hugh Ding is a transfer from what was it? Dodge City Community College in Kansas.
Yeah, Dodge City Community College, but Dodge City Community College in Kansas, but he's actually representing South Sudan in Africa at the FIBA Afro Basket tournament, and he actually led South Sudan to their very first ever win in the Afro Basket League. Get this, dude Dang, who turned 20 the day before the highly anticipated East African Derby, was a one-man show. Dang,
dude, did you see his highlights from the tournament?
Dude, 7 of 15, freaking 3 3-pointers, 22 points, 5 assists. I mean, dude, just a freaking monster. This guy's doing it at the pro level overseas already. He just turned 20. This was in August. This is like last month.
Yeah, so I saw some of his highlights from that tournament, and he was so dominant that I was like, oh, this tournament must be a joke. It must be like high school kids, but no, I mean, there were NBA players in this tournament. Like, this is legit. This is the top tournament for all of Africa basketball.
This is big boy basketball.
Yeah, there's all kinds of people coming out of Africa going to the NBA now. And I mean, he was up there hanging with the pros, man, making some incredible plays.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. So, I mean, I think this guy, just the level of talent that he has and how good of a basketball player he is just completely unrealized by like the rest of the world. And yeah, I think he puts college basketball on notice, at least CUSA league.
He's a high ceiling guy for sure.
No
very,
doubt.
very high ceiling. Yeah. I mean, he's 6'5", right? So I think he's probably gonna play a little small forward. But he's got a deep shot, man. He has hit a lot of threes from NBA range, from what I've seen. And I've heard that even after he signed his letter of intent, that there were other programs trying to get him to try to request a release from UTSA and go to other programs. So I think it's a really great find from Steve Henson's staff to pull him out of JUCO. He's a guy who actually, I think he signed with the Division II school team coming out of high school from North Carolina. He signed with South Carolina Aiken.
Okay.
And started 15 games there in his one season there. Yeah. So that, I mean, he might be the player I'm most like interested to see. I do think Darius McNeil is going to be like the newcomer of the year. He's going to be the heartbeat of this team. But if UTSA turns out to be good this year, I think it's probably because Dean turned out to be like a really, really good player.
Turned out to be great. Yeah. And quicker than anticipated. So, yeah, I look for him to be tremendous at the big man slot. And then Cedric Alley, we briefly touched on him, but yeah, this guy was a really pretty tremendous asset for us as a workhorse last year. Played in just about every single game. Same thing, right? As Jordan Ivy Curry. He's playing 20 minutes a game, shooting 41% from the field, 34% from three. Got his rebounds, 4.5 rebounds every night. Dude's consistent and a real workhorse. And that's why he got that black jersey, I think, awarded to him first, is because of just the damn hustle this guy brings every single play. It's tremendous.
Yeah, I remember asking my buddies Sam and Dustin from the Scott and Holman podcast. They do an incredible job of covering all sports for a Houston podcast. And I knew that they loved that guy because he was like instrumental in one of UH's big runs that they had before he transferred. And they're like, this guy's going to be a fan favorite. He's not going to go out and drop, 30 points on any given night, but just a level of tenacity and his effort level up and down the court is it's hard to match, right? He's the type of guy who makes everyone around him better, and he's going to win a lot of 50-50 balls. I think that's exactly what we saw from him last year. I think we're going to continue to see that from him in his senior season. Yeah, he's a redshirt senior. Hopefully he can just step up the offense just a little bit more. Man, I remember he had a really bad dry stretch where he was just bricking all of his threes. And it was just like, man, they got to start falling at some point. And then I think around the end of the year, it started to drop form a little bit. So if he can be a little bit more consistent, I think in his shooting, I think that would really help his team out a lot. But I see him starting as like an undersized power forward. He's only 6'6", but he's one of those guys that can play bigger than he stands. You know what I mean? Just because he's so active on the defensive end. So he's going to have some tough matchups for sure. But this is a UTSA game that doesn't have many 6'10", 7-foot guys on the roster, right? So someone's gonna have to play out of position, and I think it's gonna be Cedric Alley.
Nice, absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, and his teammates recognize it too, right? So that's why he's given that leadership role right off the bat. Really excited for him. And then the guy that I think everyone is the most excited for, right? Kind of the highlight name, Jacob Germany. Yes, indeed. The big man who's getting a mighty fine 3-stroke he's been working on. From behind the arc.
What was your reaction when you first heard that he was stepping out and hitting some threes?
So I wasn't totally surprised because he has shown a pretty sweet stroke. My boy Yao Ming used to pop up from behind the arch every now and again. He used to drain a couple threes, dude.
Sure.
Tall man with a nice stroke. You'd be surprised what he could do. So yeah, 6'11", Jacob Germany. We already saw a couple practice clips from some cell phones. I don't know if that was authorized or not, but he banged out a couple of threes already. Yeah. So he's looking nice. I guess he's probably maybe going to find himself in more of a stretch 4 power forward position, whereas Dude Dang really takes over the 5, being the big man underneath, the center, the true traditional center role, and Jacob Germany is able to kind of be that hybrid, playing outside, stretching out from low all the way out to the arc. So I'm really excited to just sort of bring that versatility into the game. I think it opens up a hell of a lot for this offense.
They're definitely going to run a lot more like inside out basketball, drive and kick, have Germany down there, try to pull the double team and then hop outside of the corner, try to hit that corner 3, right? I think like UTSA is going to have to space teams out because they just don't. I mean, Germany just doesn't have the size to go and bang, against like true centers, right? Because he's really a 4 that's going to have to play a 5. UTSA doesn't have a center on the roster.
Right.
College ball, you can win without that. That's no problem. We've seen a lot of teams go to the Final Four that didn't have, a big hulking Shaquille O'Neal type guy or
and that's what it is. It's the size more so than the length, right? I mean, there's plenty of guys tall enough to get down there and grab the boards, but we don't really have a truly like meaty tall dude. We don't have a big old broad-shouldered, girthy big man down there.
Rim protector,
push those around. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're all going to be more of the lanky build. Which absolutely, which is fine. It's going to work. And
we've seen Jacob, struggle against that. I remember the Oklahoma State game last year. He would catch the ball down on the block, and like he would actually get pushed out away from the rim instead of
bullied a little bit.
Down,
Yeah.
And I know that he's added like 15 pounds of muscle or something like that, but he's still only 235. Visually he looks different. He looks like he's grown up quite a bit, right? But the way he looks now as a junior is the way that you would have wanted him to look as a freshman. You know what I mean? So I think he's still a little bit behind the curve for the position that he's going to be playing.
Sure.
But
he's getting bigger there. He got some more peach fuzz coming in on the cheeks and over the upper lip. Yeah.
His jawline is so much more defined.
Jawline's getting
bigger. What I'm saying?
Yeah. No, his arms are definitely bigger. Yeah. So yeah, he's getting a little bit of size to him, but I mean, he's a force on defense though. This guy freaking swatted 30 shots last year. I'd imagine he might even top that number this season. He really is a force when it comes to blocks. I think he had a few steals in there too. He's a really, really efficient guy. So he does it on both sides of the floor too. I mean, he's not one to just do the scoring on offense. He will get dirty, get in there, block some shots, go down on the floor a couple of times for some balls. So
yeah, we have to say, he's a guy he took over some games last year, especially down the stretch. I think like the last 2 weeks of the season, I remember him having a pretty good number of double doubles. I think he scored like 30 points against Charlotte, 26. Yeah, 26 points. If he can have some games like that, twice a month or something, this team's in a pretty good spot. Again, right, they're not going to replace Jhivvan and Keaton, but if they can get better contributions from all their players and the bench steps up a little bit, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, and that was actually something that was highlighted. I can't remember who said it, but someone had mentioned that I think we're going to have a different top scorer every night, right?
Yeah, I can see
and yeah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all.
No.
So that's who we think the starting 5 is going to shake out to be. That's Darius McNeil, Jordan Ivy Curry, Du Dang, Cedric Alley Jr., and Jacob Germany.
Yes, sir. So I do want to take a quick moment to recognize all of our Patreon subscribers. We have continued to grow, obviously, through the great football season. But we also picked up some basketball subscribers last year. So, we always do our best to, cover basketball as much as we can, watch as many games as we can and all that. I don't think there are any other UTSA basketball podcasts. So, we're trying to fill that gap as much as we can. If you would like to contribute to Elemental Audible covering basketball, let us know. We would love to increase our coverage as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So let us know.
Yes.
Yeah. So just real quick, I want to recognize our big money donors: Maddie, Ben Tovar, John, Nolan Manguy, and Zach Espericueta, the San Antonio Podcast Network. If you're looking for some extra podcast to get you through the bye week for football, definitely check out Zach's podcast. They've got a lot of great stuff. He's been interviewing people all over San Antonio, like 2 or 3 a week, right? So a lot of great stuff. Definitely check out his feed. And our board of trustees members, Digitique, John Otwell, and Lino of Listos Rowdies Tailgating, who is at the World Series right now. So shout out to Lino.
Gotta get a good win tonight, baby.
Yeah, gotta bounce back.
Gotta bounce back, son.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the guys that we see coming off the bench this year, as well as maybe some other names that are probably on that fringe.
Yeah. So I actually think that Phoenix Ford was one of the other guys that was voted in as a black jersey holder. Yeah, someone to don the black jersey of defense. Phoenix was pretty instrumental for us coming off of the bench last year. And so I'd imagine his role kind of continues to grow coming off the bench. But yeah, I think this is going to be one of the main 6 men. Him and Kazumble. We're really going to be seeing our big 6 men. Those two right there.
I think this guy might have been before your time at UTSA, but when I was a student, UTSA had a guy named Stephen Franklin. Does that name ring a bell for you?
It rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah. So he was an on and off starter for some of Brooks Thompson's teams, and you know, he was out there for defense, and he was just he was a scavenger for the basketball. You know, any loose ball, he was out there diving on it. You know, he would match up with anyone at any position, you know, pick and roll. He would be able to rotate off that, no problem. And that's how I see Phoenix Ford. You know, it was a role that this team had needed for a while, to have that kind of physical defense enforcer. And I think Phoenix Ford does a really good job of playing that role for this team.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And then, and the other big one off the bench, I think, is going to be Eric Kazumble, of course, right?
Yeah. You know, he's going to start a lot of games at point guard, you know, definitely in situations where Darius is banged up, or, you know, if he's just tired or fatigued or whatever, you know, if they're playing in a tournament, it was a quick turnaround. I think Kazumble, you know, he's shown that he can start and run the offense efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really good point guard, really good distributor of the ball. And he's got that great Italian Euro style of moving the ball around. And
I think he demands a lot of respect from his teammates. You know, you have a lot of trust in him.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. He's a real sophisticated ball handler. He will start several games, and he's going to be super instrumental. So yeah, those 2 guys coming off the bench really going to be carrying as a 6th man.
So a guy that's hurt for UTSA right now, I'm not sure if he's going to be ready for the start of the season or not. Alu, a 6'8", 180-pound wing, transferred from Temple Community College. I think this is a guy that he could be another one of those surprises, kind of like Diu Ding, right?
Yeah,
just great length of the perimeter, 6'8". You know, he has scoring capability. Every interview I've seen in the preseason, people have, you know, been sure to mention him as one of the guys that's going to make an impression on the fans as far as his ability goes. So hopefully he gets healthy soon and he can make an impact off the bench.
Yeah, so he's very efficient from the field, at least as far as shooting goes, 48%. And so I think, I mean, the more scores you can distribute across this team, the better, right? And so if a guy's capable of taking the shot and shooting it, these are the kind of guys that we need on the team. So yeah, I think it's going to be great. Yeah, so it's Alu. He's actually from Kenya.
Oh, awesome. Probably the freshman that everyone's most excited about is Josh Farmer. It's another guy out of Houston. I think he's officially UTSA's highest rated basketball recruit from the state of Texas. Because I think Jacob Germany's still number 1. He's for the 4-star, but he was from Oklahoma. So I think Farmer is the highest rated out of Texas.
He was the 10th best, regardless of position, in the state of Texas.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Top 40 nationally.
Yeah,
that's insane.
That's wild. Top 40 nationally among forwards. I don't know that puts him in the top 100, but still, for a program like UTSA to land a guy like that, I think he was committed to Florida State for a while, or he had an offer from Florida State, one of the two.
Chose UTSA over Wake Forest, Florida State, Louisiana Tech,
UT Arlington. Yeah. So we'll see what he brings to the table. He's 6'9" again. So the length of this team is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen in program history ever. You know, going back to the the 80s when UTSA was playing in the Metro Conference or wherever, just going to bring a lot of disruption along the perimeter. And, I think Josh averages 22 points per game in high school. So obviously he has that natural scoring ability as well.
Well, and he's real good on both sides of the ball. I think this guy is going to be a real dog, real gritty.
Mm-hmm.
Played at Sharpstown. He's from Sharpstown, south side. One of the rougher districts to try to play in, and a very hard team to be successful on. Usually not very good. So I
actually watched one of his games. It was streamed live on the internet. And
okay.
First off, his team was not very good. He was by far the best player on that team.
Yeah.
But he was going against another Division I recruit. And I can't remember who that guy was or what school he was going to.
Mm-hmm.
But my impression was like Farmer was kind of like bored out there. Like he needed to be facing like a higher level competition, because it was just like, he could just throw a putback down at any moment's notice. He was just dunking all over the place. And on the defensive side, like it didn't matter if he got beat, because he'd be able to block the ball from behind, even if he got beat. So it was hard to like really truly evaluate him. I would have liked to seen him like in an AAU type of setting where like everyone out there was Division I caliber. But his natural ability just like really jumped out at you. Yeah, I mean, definitely got the sense of like with the right coaching that this guy could be, really, really good player. I think at the Conference USA and even at the AAC level too.
Yeah. Just need some molding.
Which we'll get into that whole discussion later in the podcast. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So the last guy that I think will for sure come off the bench, because he came off the bench last year, is Lachlan Bowfinger.
Mm-hmm.
So UTSA has a proud tradition of having, an Australian or two on the court every single year, and Lachlan is carrying on that Aussie pride.
That's right.
Love to see. I wonder if him and Lucas Dean hang out.
I'd imagine they gotta at least know of each
so,
other, right? Yeah.
I'll have to keep an eye on that. Yeah, interesting.
That's really interesting. So Lachlan is actually a pretty hard-nosed dude, man. I mean, he plays really, really gritty, does a lot of stuff that's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but I mean, he gets big, and he's a really, really good defensive player, man. He forces some turnovers.
He's really aggressive.
Some blocks, extremely aggressive, man. Yeah, super, super hard-nosed dude, man.
I'm reading his bio now. It says he has 3 older brothers, so I guess it makes sense that he plays the way that he does, because he got beat up his whole life by those older brothers. Right?
That's right. Yeah. And so, yeah, just I'm gonna see a lot from him, just to sort of relieve guys and to come in there and give us a little bit of a spark, give us a little bit of toughness when we need it. And I imagine throughout the season his role is going to grow.
Yeah, I think he's going to swing back and forth between shooting guard and small forward. I think he's a really explosive athlete. He's a guy who can fly up high and throw down the alley oop and stuff like that. So yeah, I think he's the great like kind of dynamo off the bench. If UTSA is on a rut, I think they could put Lachlan in. He can like help them go on a little run. Give a little breather to the starters. So you got to have a guy like that on your team.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So I think those are going to be the primary contributors.
Right.
Coming off the bench. But there's 2 guys that like, maybe they're going to redshirt, maybe they'll play. I'm not sure. The first one is, hold on, I got to click on his bio so I pronounce it right. Lamin Sabali. I gotta get faster with it as we go through this season.
Lamin Sabali. Yeah. So 3-star from 24/7 and from Arizona, from Germany, but played at a prep school in Arizona.
Yeah, I assume probably a military guy to go from Germany to Arizona like that.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
So he probably had some parents that are in the service, and maybe that's how he ended up at UTSA. Maybe they've been deployed in San Antonio or stationed here. Brother.
His sister was the number 2 overall pick in the 2020 WNBA draft.
Yeah,
out of Oregon, and she went to the Dallas Wings, and his other sister also actually plays for Oregon, plays for the Ducks. So the dude comes from a basketball family.
Yeah, it's not bad, man.
Yeah, she has some pretty big shoes to fill. Yeah, imagine both your sisters going to Oregon. You go to UTSA. You got to show up, baby, and try to make something happen. So, yeah, I think Lamine Sabali could definitely show up and be a contributor, someone that we see more from.
Another good guy who's got good length at the perimeter. I haven't heard his name mentioned as much as some of the other guys that we mentioned before, but definitely a good developmental piece for UTSA. Or, maybe he comes on and surprises us down the stretch,
Yeah.
A guy that I have heard mentioned a little bit more. I just think that UTSA has a lot of talent at the guard position. But Christian Tucker is a guy that I think he might be a walk-on for UTSA.
I think he is too. There's not even any bio information available for him. But I have heard his name in a couple of interviews be dropped a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be the first time that UTSA's had a walk-on point guard from Arizona and it's turned out to be pretty good, right? So we'll definitely roll with it. But Christian Tucker's been getting a lot of love from his teammates in his interviews, right? So I think he's a guy that, maybe later in games and, maybe, in blowout situations, I think will come in and have a role in this team.
Yeah, definitely. So that's sort of the makeup of the squad, who to see, who to look out for, what to expect, right? And the names you can expect to be the biggest contributors. And you want to move into the schedule, Jared?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool.
So to be honest with you, I haven't broken down the schedule a whole lot yet. Obviously the big game is you got the return trip to Norman to face Oklahoma again.
Of course.
But they're going to open the season up on November 9th against Trinity in the Convocation Center. Oh man, how many non-Division I games do we have this year? Trinity is one, A&M Commerce is one.
Denver?
No, Denver is D1.
Okay.
Oh, St. Mary's is D2.
St. Mary's.
Our Lady of the Lake. So what's that? That's already 4 teams that are not Division I on the schedule.
What is IUP UI?
That's Indiana something. Is that Hope? But yeah, no, they're out of Indiana. They're a pretty good program. They've been to the March Madness a couple times.
Grand Canyon's D1, right?
Yeah, Grand Canyon's actually really, really good.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay. Yep. So the out of conference actually does kind of have a different mix of teams from, I guess, a couple of different teams in there.
Yeah, I would say the out of conference is really weak. I would have
extremely weak.
If I had to guess, I would say UTSA has one of the softest schedules in all of Division I basketball.
Is that done intentionally to?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be.
Try to get
so I remember a couple of years ago, somebody told me that the direction from Conference USA was you need a schedule to where you're guaranteed 10 wins a year. And whether you're playing non-D1 or you're playing D1, just make sure you get to 10 wins. So that's why UTSA have been scheduling, St. Edwards at home, and they have been scheduling, RGV at home.
Yeah.
They're not bringing in like mid-majors to come compete in their home contest. Part of the reason why, Steve Henson, to be frank, has a great record at home, but then you look at the strength of schedule on the road versus at home, and it's drastic. You're talking like a 150-point difference in the KenPom ratings, right? So, we're going to talk more about the transition to the AAC, but that's one thing I'm excited about the move, right? Is like, I hate that UTSA plays such a weak schedule, and I think it's hard to build a fan base that way when you're going to show up and you're going to see UTSA play against, guys that look like they got plucked out of the rec center next door to the Convo.
That's right. It's absolutely right.
Yeah. So UTSA is hosting a multi-team event. I don't know if they're going to brand that tournament or name it or whatever, but right now it just says UTSA multi-team event. If anyone from UTSA Athletics is listening, Alameda Audible is interested in sponsoring it. Our budget's probably about $200.
Yeah, we will sponsor the piss out of it. I mean, it would look a hell of a lot better than multi-team event. By the way, it's in like 2 weeks. So
hit us up, hit our line. The DMs are open.
For sure.
No, but all jokes aside, this is a super, super soft schedule for that multi-team event. So
so that's the
Denver's probably the best team here. I don't know.
IUPUI, which is this Indiana school, Denver, and then Texas A&M Commerce. That's going to
Corpus
be,
Christi.
And then I'm sorry, Texas A&M Corpus Christi and Texas A&M Commerce.
Oh wait, hold on. I got it mixed up here. So
they're all in there. So
they're all in that group.
Is
the UTSA is playing Commerce, Denver, IUPUI.
Yeah, it looks like
they're playing all of them. Yeah,
it spans out. It spans out from the 15th through the 17th. So it's a 3-day tournament consisting of UTSA, Texas A&M Commerce, and Corpus, Denver, and IUPUI. So that's gonna, I mean, you got to imagine UTSA goes in there and plays pretty damn well, at least figures out the kinks, figures out the starting rotation is supposed to be, and maybe get some rosters kind of set in stone.
Yeah, I mean, having that many games in just 2-3 days or whatever, like you're gonna have to go deep on your bench. So I think it's good that they're having this event on campus, right? That they have some weaker teams, because it gives Henson the flexibility to go out and play Christian Tucker,
play different
for
guys,
20 minutes, and see how he does, and have Libby and Sabali out there for 22 minutes, or whatever. Yeah, so I'm all for it. I don't really know, again, I'm no expert on college basketball, right? It's definitely like I watch UTSA and that's pretty much it. So I don't really know the dynamics of like how these multi-team events work, but I do understand that there's limits on how often you can host something like that on campus. So I think for UTSA to host it this year, and I don't know the financial aspect of it or anything either, but for UTSA to host this kind of event on campus this year, I think it's like the perfect time for them to do it, because it's such a good opportunity to develop your roster, which UTSA is going to need to do, because they're trying to find the future basis of the program, whether it's the JUCO transfers or the freshmen. Yeah,
and I can't recall us hosting a tournament in recent years at all.
I can't remember the last one. They definitely participate in one every year, but I can't remember us hosting one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So after the tournament, then we get into Lamar, St. Mary's, which I had not seen the St. Mary's Rattlers logo quite yet, so that's interesting. Grand Canyon, Sam Houston, UTRGV, Illinois State, Lady of the Lake. That gets us through out of conference.
Dude, that is a rough out of conference, man. Like not a difficult one. Like
not much to get excited for.
No, it's really not
on your
man.
CUSA TV. Yeah.
Well, we were definitely playing tougher out of conference schedules when we were in the Southland. So it's kind of shocking to see this laid out.
Out of all of these out of conference games, St. Mary's and Grand Canyon will both be on ESPN Plus. I'd imagine that's probably going to be the most watchable platform for our audience. So those that aren't locally based, at least. So St. Mary's and Grand Canyon, November 29th and December 2nd. That's on ESPN.
Yeah. Plus. So all the home games are available on Conference USA TV. I think it's like $10 a month or something like that.
Sure.
Again, we're moving to the AAC, so it'll be better in the future. But it's definitely a worthwhile investment.
Well, and during the regular season, you're going to get a ton of games on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, sure. Like if you're not willing to pay the $10 a month, like you're going to see plenty of Roadrunner basketball, because a lot of the games are on ESPN Plus. But if you get the Conference USA TV, you're guaranteed to see every home game
on the CUSA broadcast. Which,
if you want to call it that,
however, whichever quality, And so then we start off the season, UAB, Southern Miss, Louisiana Tech, Old Dominion, Charlotte. So we get into the full on conference slate at that point.
Yeah, man, that first weekend that's a rude welcome to conference USA play.
Coming out of the vanilla out of conference schedule that we have to go in and have to play UAB, Southern Miss, and Louisiana Tech straight out the gate, and then Old Dominion. Dude,
yeah, it's rough, man. I mean, it's nice that you have Southern Miss kind of sandwiched between, probably 2, 3 of the 4 best teams in the conference right out of the gate. So Southern Miss should be a win. That program's been in a pretty bad spot for a while now. But UAB is definitely a team that has a chance to get an at-large bid this year, even if they don't win Conference USA. They're freaking loaded. They probably have 8 guys on that roster that would start at UTSA. There might be more. So they're super, super strong. Middle Tennessee is always a strong program. And then Louisiana Tech, they've got my boy, is it Kenny Lofton?
Kenny Lofton, I think it is.
He's like that big, chunky center they have. I love that guy. Yeah, man. My spirit animal out there on the court.
Yeah. So it's gonna hit us like a sack of bricks probably in the month of January. Pretty stacked. And then you got to go to Charlotte. Charlotte's not that bad either. And then we'll play UTEP back to back in El Paso, and then San Antonio
with their new coach.
Yeah.
So if you guys missed out, they hired, I think Joe Golding is his name. I think he was the coach at Abilene Christian that upset UT in the tournament last year.
Yeah.
So that should be improved. Crazy. I think. I don't know what they look like talent wise, but I mean they always recruit well to UTEP.
So I mean I know it's a rebuilding year, but is there a record that you would deem a quote unquote successful season, or is it you have to see intangible development, yada, yada, that sort of thing.
Yeah, let's talk, success, right? I mean, this team lost 2 cornerstones of the program, right? I don't think you can expect them to say like, you need to make a tournament run this year. I don't think that you can say like you have to compete for a championship this year or anything like that. I think it's too much, right? To lose 2 guys that have done things that this program has never seen before, right? It's hard to have that expectation. UTSA, just as a basketball program, is not to the point where you can just reload year in and year out, right? Recruiting is getting better, but we're still not to the point where we can say, oh, we lost, 5,000 combined points from their careers, and we're just going to move on like nothing happened. There are programs in America that can do that. UTSA is not one of them.
And look, and albeit as fantastic as we were with Jhivvan and Keaton at the helm, this team was still just a couple games over 500 year in and year out. Hell, right. I think we had a pretty significant losing season just a couple seasons ago. We were like 13-19 in 2019. So, and we would be, I think we were 15-11 last year, 13-19, 2019, and then 2018 we were 17-15. So look, even then it was a very, very tough schedule to compete in and to have a tremendously enormous winning record in. And Conference USA is always kind of tough basketball slate whenever we play our conference schedule. Now, what this team has done very, very well through the Keaton and Jhivvan era is played extremely good in the Convocation Center. Our home record these last 3 seasons is unbelievable. Last year we were 12-2. The year prior we were 10-5. The year before that we were 11-4. Very, very good team in the Convocation Center. Why is that? I have no idea.
I can tell you why, because they're playing D3 schools in the Convo.
It's just
don't get it twisted. They play well in conference in the Convo as well, but that really inflates the record.
It inflates on the out of conference side, right?
And so I'm not trying to say like they're not good at home, because they definitely are, but it makes that number all more eye popping when you're going out and you're just beating A&M Corpus Christi or whatever.
So I mean, look, I don't think it's like extremely far fetched to say this team can go 500. But I think
that's a goal.
I think that's a tangible goal, and it's a difficult goal. I think it's one that's going to take some success, some real success and development in order to achieve 500 for this team. It's not going to be easy for this team to go 500, but they are capable of doing it, and they can. So if this roster is able to figure it out, how they function, how they work, the way to play ball right, pass a good shot for the better shot, and then make those better shots, be as good as they need to be on defense. Yeah, this team could go 500, and I don't think that's far-fetched.
We only played Western Kentucky once this year, so that's a pro. That's a big pro.
Yeah.
I'm not knowledgeable enough to know the minutia of how every team at Conference USA is going to be, but I think this is Conference USA's like best chance to have 2 bids. Did they have 2 bids last year? Do you recall?
Like I think they did have 2 bids. Yeah, I think they did have 2 bids last year.
I mean, I know North Texas lost a lot, but that's a really strong program that's been good for a couple of years now. Western Kentucky is freaking stacked, and then UAB. I mean, I don't see a way that UAB doesn't get into the tournament this year. So, I think if UTSA could go 500, even with a light schedule, that's still a win for me. But what I want to see more than that is I want to see the young guys like look like they're going to be the, some of the torchbearers like moving forward. You know what I mean? Yeah. I want to see like a deeper team that's not as dependent on 2 players, because that's like the new reality, right? So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my takeaway for it. I think you're kind of playing with house money this year because the expectations are so low.
Yeah.
But if we see development throughout the year, I'll be really pleased with that.
Sure, definitely.
So let's take a quick Cumbia break, and when we come back from that, we're going to talk about the transition to the AAC and how that impacts basketball. We'll talk a little bit about Karen Aston starting her career at UTSA, which is really exciting. All right, Adrian, back again after the Cumbia break. It's been a much longer basketball breakdown than anticipated. I'm proud that we're able to, dive this deep into it.
Yeah, this is good. I think we've done a good job of sort of compare and contrast with the team of old in what may be the team of new. So I very, very much enjoyed it. And as we continue to talk about the team of new, it's only right that we talk about the team of the future, right? And that is, how does UTSA basketball fit, compete, play in the AAC?
Oh boy, man. So when it comes to football, UTSA is pretty much already ready to go, right? From a coaching standpoint, from a talent recruiting standpoint, to on-field success,
competitive.
The team we've seen over the past 2 years is as good as any team that's going to be left in this new version of the AAC. Basketball
standpoint, at least to some degree, right?
Basketball is a completely different story.
Whoa.
So this morning y'all know me, right? I got spreadsheets on spreadsheets. So this morning I made a new spreadsheet. Adrian, we're all on video for this call. Adrian's like rolling his eyes like this freaking nerd. But so I made a new spreadsheet to look at the new coming Conference USA teams to the AAC, as well as the teams that are going to be left behind in AAC 2.0. And then I did like a sliding color scale, right? So like if you have a bad KenPom preseason rating, you're in red. And if you've got a green one, you're in green. And then there's like different strengths to those colors, like higher, lower you go.
Right, the hue. Yeah.
The hue. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
UTSA is so much worse than any team on the list that we have our own reserved color hue. We're like the deepest, darkest red you can get on the scale.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Like wine red, like
right. And so this is preseason. So it's completely, projections. I'm sure if I would have taken last year's like end of the year KenPom rating, UTSA probably is higher in that.
Sure.
Because we do know that I should have explained what a KenPom rating is. I'm kind of assuming everyone else is like a stats nerd. So KenPom is a dude. Ken something is his name. He's been running this website where he tracks basketball analytics. He's been doing it for like 20, 30 years or something like that. So it's kind of agreed upon as like the go-to standard for like ranking all 300 plus teams in Division I basketball. Is like you look at their KenPom rating, you got a pretty good idea of like how good or bad that team is. Because it's really, there's so many conferences and divisions in Division I basketball. It's really hard. Like how good is like Texas Southern, the best team in the SWAC, compared to like the worst team in, the West Coast Conference, right? Yeah. It's hard to have a gauge because the level of competition is so much drastic. So KenPom helps you kind of start to figure that stuff out. UTSA is 237 heading into the year. There's 315 Division I teams, something like that. So we're real low down in the dumps here. But as a trend, UTSA has been improving in KenPom, right? So like our overall rating compared to the rest of Division I has been on a nice, steady, positive trajectory. So I think we've been like the 137 range the past couple of seasons and moving upwards. So expecting a big drop this year. But then you look at the teams that are going to be in the AAC, man. I mean, Memphis is 16 in the preseason KenPom rankings, right? So they're in the Final Four in KenPom,
right.
It's a completely different level of competition. Wichita State is 62. So that would put them, 65 before? I mean, that's at least with Sweet 16. SMU is number 60. They're a Sweet 16 program preseason. UAB is 71, so they're borderline Sweet 16. Definitely.
A lot of these AAC teams are just staples in the tournament and in later rounds in the tournament. I mean, you just see, you recognize a lot of these schools, whereas in CUSA, you might get one school to make it to the second round, right. And it's just a completely different level of competition when it comes to basketball.
And think of the seeding too, right? Like if, let's say that, Rice goes on a crazy run and they win the conference tournament, they get the auto bid, they're going to come in as probably a 15 or 14 seed, right? Yeah. The team that comes out of the AAC and the teams that get the GAD bid, I mean, you're looking at a 7 seed and 8 seed, right? So your chances to advance are much higher because you're not going and facing, a top 5, top 10 program right off the bat, right? So that's the big thing, right? And like, that's why UTSA needs to invest in their program to make sure that we're getting into that top 100 for Division I, because ironically, if UTSA stays bad, but they happen to upset Memphis, then that goes on Memphis's like bad loss list. and that prevents them from being a 5 seed and makes them a 10 seed. And then they've got to go play with what's the math for that? What would they be matched up in the first round as a 10 seed? I guess 6 seed.
6,
right? Just pointing out that like if UTSA drags these other teams down because of the strength of schedule and the bad losses, it makes it harder for these elite teams to advance deeper into the tournament. And that's how you really get a lot of money for the conference, right? Like you get a certain amount per game appearance. So if you play 4 tournament games, that's like getting the whole conference in the tournament and everybody is getting a share. Now, the money all gets pulled up, it gets sent to the conference and the conference divvies it out to all teams. But if you have one team that makes a deep run, that's as good, if not better, than getting a bunch of teams in the first place, because it has like the multiplying effect to it.
Yeah.
So UTSA really needs to step it up. We're not alone. FAU needs to step it up. Rice, Charlotte needs to step it up. But when it comes to what the resources that UTSA is given to compete, it's not even fair what Steve Henson is going to have to deal with compared to, some of these better basketball programs.
Well, and the resources is the biggest thing, I think, that differentiates us whenever we go up to the AAC, because just the resources there, basketball wise, are just, exponentially greater than what we even wish UTSA had right now.
Than what we can imagine as UTSA fans. We can't even imagine it.
It's literally not even close.
Right.
Yeah. Our facilities are only a small portion of it. Henson's staff is a fraction of the size of other staffs at the Memphises of the world, another AAC schools. So look, the biggest thing is going to be money. And until there's money flowing into this program, it's going to be very, very hard to get competitive on the AAC level. You can go there and try to get the best damn 3-star guys you can get out of Houston and some of these Texas cities and hope for the best. But even then, it's going to be really hard. Really hard.
Yeah, I think your off-field support staff in basketball is even more important than in football, right?
Yes.
Because in football, you have a whole week leading up to the game. There's not as much film to break down. Whereas at the basketball level, you might be on the road for a full week and you play 3 different teams, right? And you're trying to like chop up film and see different scenarios of what they do in certain sets and stuff like that. That's really hard to do when it's one guy, 2 guys doing that. And, they're not even full-time employees. Memphis has a whole slew of people that do this, So the scouting disadvantage that UTSA is at from that perspective is drastic. Obviously race helps. They're going to have better access to training facilities and, recovery, nutrition, stuff like that. But man, even just talking about like how often they can practice, man, I don't think people realize that UTSA shares just the Convocation Center between men's basketball, women's basketball, and volleyball.
Gosh.
Now, it is not uncommon to walk into the student rec center and see the basketball team out there practicing at the rec center.
Well, yeah,
I'm gonna go and break some news to you guys. That doesn't fly at Wichita State.
Dude, how about just trying to listen to the post-practice interviews for basketball, and you can hear practice happening in the background of the interview. You hear the whistles blowing, you hear the ball dribbling, you hear the rim rattling, you hear people screaming and yelling at each other back there. And Henson's trying to answer questions to the media. There's not even a room where he can go do that in that damn place. What are you going to do it in the parking lot with Henson?
I don't think the locker rooms have been updated since I was in high school. 30 years old, Adrian.
There's probably troughs in there, I think.
There are. I can't confirm. Yes.
Pretty sure I've used it actually in the convo when it was a trough. Yeah.
Jeez, so there's good news though. So literally 3 hours before we recorded, news broke from a city of San Antonio council meeting that there was $10 million in the upcoming city of San Antonio public bond to help fund a practice facility for women's basketball and volleyball at UTSA.
Wow.
Right. So, even if men's basketball is staying in the combo and it's just the ladies using that practice facility, that helps basketball so much because it opens up access to the side courts. So you can have multiple, drills going at once. and you can kind of practice on your own schedule. You don't have to worry about scheduling. Oh, there's a volleyball match on this day, and the girls have a flight at 6 p.m. So the only time we can practice is early in the morning. But that kind of sucks because we've got a night game this week, and we want to get ready to play at night. A million different scenarios, right? And that's why, like, you see the basketball team practicing the rec, right? So that has got to change. It looks like UTSA is going to match that $10 million fund with their own fundraising, and start to develop that facility, in the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. So that is like the first step is, creating practice facilities on campus. That's going to help recruiting a lot in volleyball and both basketball sports. And then, obviously the combo is going to be replaced, but it's going to take time, and that's a lot of freaking money to do that, right? So, to do that right off the bat, hopefully get some temporary locker room improvements for the Convocation Center, I think would be a welcome addition. And hopefully, get some extra headcount for both basketball programs, some extra video people, and then, more dedicated trainers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, need it big time.
But, I mean, the resource gap is tremendous. Absolutely,
and it's going to
be,
and it's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. Chances are, right? I mean, it's going to take a little while. So. Absolutely. So, it's good that UTSA is moving into this conference, right? Eventually, we're going to get a real arena. We'll get rid of the combo. Basketball is going to get better, but man, it's going to be a rocky road getting there. That 2023 or 2024 seasons, it's going to get ugly. UTSA might get run out of the gym for a whole 2 months straight. Like, people need to prepare themselves for what that's going to look like, right? Yeah.
And they need to donate what they can to the Roadrunner Athletic Fund, because we're talking a $20 million gap from what UTSA has to work with a lot of these programs that have been in this conference for a while. So yeah, it's gonna be brutal, but UTSA is gonna be on real TV for basketball consistently. It's gonna be a Tuesday night. You're gonna be able to go get some wings at the bar and watch UTSA play Temple on ESPNU. It's gonna be awesome. So recruiting is gonna get better, but it's gonna be tough, dude. It's gonna be tough. I don't want to undersell the challenge as Steve Henson's been presented. It's an exciting challenge, but it's drastic.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Well, so just real quick, I don't know the women's basketball roster as well as the men's because it's new faces everywhere. But Karen Aston, former head coach for the UT Longhorns, is now at UTSA. And how Dr. Campos was able to pull it off, I'll never know. I'd love to talk to both of them and see how that relationship came about. But one of the strongest hires UTSA has ever made in any sport, to get a coach of her pedigree still in her coaching prime. It's not like she's at the tail end of her career or anything. She's she's fired up. She's ready to go. She's out there fundraising. She had a potluck with donors. That was crazy to see. But UTSA women's basketball has been in an awful, an embarrassingly bad spot for many years. Pretty much as long as I've been involved with UTSA, they've been bad. So I'm really excited to see what Coach Aston can bring.
Aston is tremendous. For those that don't know, she was huge at UT. Led the Longhorns to NCAA tournament year in and year out. You talk about three Sweet 16s, an Elite 8, a Final 4. And she also brought with her a hell of a staff.
Yeah.
Whenever she came from UT as well. So associate head coach is Jamie Carey, and she was also UT assistant with Aston, and also helped the Longhorns, played with the Longhorns when they went to the 2003 Final Four. Empress Davenport played for Aston at UT. Cameron Miles, Lauren Fruits. It's a really high level staff.
Yeah, I've been told that Cameron Miles is one of the best recruiters in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
So really excited to see what they can bring in there.
Yeah. So it's a really tremendous staff, and I think they're going to be able to get some better talent to come in here.
Yeah, we're already seeing it, to be frank. I think the top end talent on this team is already going to be better than what we have seen from UTSA in the past couple of years. They were able to get Alyssa Coleman to transfer from UT. I think she was like a top 10 recruit for power forwards nationally. when she signed with UT. I want to say that she had an ACL tear at UT. I could be totally wrong on that. I don't think that she played there, but she's from Atascocita, so she's from Houston, kind of local to UTSA. It's good that she stayed in the state of Texas, but she'll be a redshirt freshman. Obviously super high ceiling with her. But there's also a transfer from Lamar that I assume followed Coach Miles over. Jaden Pimentel. I hope I pronounced that right.
Pimentel.
Yeah, so she definitely seems to be the leader of the team. She's going to be the starting point guard for sure. I watched a couple of interviews with her. She has a great demeanor. I mean, I was like, I'm a fan of this girl, like right off the bat. She's super smart, super thoughtful. You can tell that she really cares about her teammates and she really loves her teammates.
She was a force at Lamar, and so she transferred over from Lamar. She was 2-time Southland Conference All Defensive Team and Southland Conference Freshman of the Year.
Heck yeah,
2018. So, yeah, she can ball.
Yeah,
and Lamar women's team is actually usually pretty good. So, this is definitely going to be one of the, I think, immediate kind of impact players on the team that maybe you don't recognize, but you're going to learn about really, really quick.
I would say another name to watch for this team is Kylie McGuire. So she is
Kylie McGuire is a returning player.
Yeah. So she's a player. She's also from Atascocita. So I think she started 6 games last year. It looks like didn't put up great stats, but it sounds like she's really developed under Coach Aston's guidance, and that she took a big step forward over the offseason. Like I've seen her mentioned by Coach Aston several times. So excited to see her step into a bigger role and kind of establish herself as a starter. So without getting into the schedule and what they're looking at, this is a culture year for Coach Aston. This is less than a year zero situation. You're stepping into a program that has, frankly, no pride in itself. I think the 3 best players for this team transferred out either during the season or after the season last year. So wins and losses, frankly, mean nothing. If Coach Aston can come in and build a culture that has her girls ready to compete every minute of every game, that's a huge step forward for this team. And, they're going to need to build chemistry. They're going to need to build bonds with each other, learn how to play with each other. They got to figure out who they want to be. I know Coach Aston got the team together and she said, I want you guys to write down words of like what you want our culture to be. What do you want this program to look like? Not just for you as a player individually when you're here, but 5, 10, 20 years down the road, what do you want the legacy of this program to be? How do you want us to be defined?
Right.
And that was fascinating to me.
It's been tremendous, and they even talked about it. Aston has actually been stopping practice mid-play to break old habits and making sure that the girls are getting what the coaches are asking for, right? And so it's absolutely instituting a new culture, and with that is breaking old habits. And so I think there's been a very, very big emphasis on breaking old habits so far through the preseason practices with this team. And McGuire even came out and talked about it as well. She said they're talking about Aston and staff. They're very particular when it comes to small details.
I think she used the word stickler, which I got a kick out of.
So yeah, man, it's different, and there's expectations and there's a standard that Karen Aston is bringing into this program. And so all fantastic signs for laying the foundation that we want to see here.
Yeah, I frankly, I don't care if this team wins a game or not. If they don't get embarrassed and they compete, which we can't say the same about last year's team. They were out there getting run out of the gym by Incarnate Word. If they have pride in themselves, I'm happy, right? Next season is when I'm going to start saying, okay, they need to get 500 this year. And then after that, okay, they need to compete for a conference championship. And then they're going to get into the AC, and that's going to be a little bit trickier, right? So we might have to adjust our expectations. But this year is about so much more than basketball. It's truly about creating an environment where the student athletes are being nurtured and where they want to compete and they want to represent this university with pride. And it's sad that it got to the point where that is the expectation. I hope that no program, even outside of athletics, I hope there's no program, no student group nothing at UTSA that ever gets to such a low point where we have that kind of standard. But Karen Aston is the best person in the country to pull this program out of this darkness and into a better spot. Indeed. So I'm super stoked to watch this team. And I think we're going to see down the road, we're going to see this team look like how Derek Pittman's soccer team looks right now, where, you know, they're not the best team in the country, but every Roadrunner out there has got a lot of pride in what they're doing, and they're representing this university well. So that's the goal.
Well said. Yeah. Very well said.
I think we can wrap it up with that. We got some Astros to watch. It's the World Series. Enjoy the bye week in football. Do some yard work. You know, hang out with your kids. Take them to the playground.
Is yard work on your to-do list? That sounded a very personal.
No, I need to. What do you call it? Pressure watch my back deck, but it's not going to happen because my boy Cyrus is coming to town. We're going to go watch Houston SMU play.
That is so massive.
And then I'm going to the Dynamo game on Sunday. So it's a sports packed bye week for me. It don't stop, baby, but at least
it never stops.
I don't have any UTSA anguish. You know, I can live free in that regard.
Very nice. Cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for checking us out. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. And be sure to check out our Patreon, where we have all kinds of bonus podcast episodes. We have guests on there all the time, and we'll be back next week to preview the UTEP Miners.